Hello. It's that time of the day again, isn't it? It's the time that we do, it's the time of the week even, that we do Your Words Have Power with the, sorry, I'm coming round. There we go. There we go. Yes, we're there. We're there. Hello. Right. Hone your speaker skills this week. We are looking at making a plan. Making a plan to make a difference, because that's what this year is all about, making a difference. We're having a mad year. Make a difference. Get it? So what are you doing to plan your speaking journey this year? We put out a survey at the end of last year about what people wanted, what the questions about what are your plans for your goals for 2023 as a speaker. And one of the things that came back time after time was a lack of planning. Because we said, well, what have you got planned for next year? That was the thing that came up time and again. No particular plan. And I'm sure you're familiar with that phrase, fail to plan and you plan to fail. Trite, but true. I can imagine right now that some of you are going, oh, right, a plan? Seriously? Particularly for the speakers that I've worked with who are more spiritually based, who don't like to plan, they prefer to download and let it all flow. The analogy I've used in the past is absolutely going with the flow, but like a river has banks. If it doesn't have banks, you have a flood and it's mushy and sticky and doesn't really work very well. It's not effective in terms of the flow of water. So from that perspective, let's have a think about a plan for you for this coming year and you speaking. What have you got planned? I'll tell you what we've got planned. We're looking at taking you on a journey to different stages, literally, of your journey. So we're starting the year with a multi-author book called Making a Difference. Stories to magnify abundance, vitality, and freedom. Once you have a book in your hand, what do you do with it? Yes, it's great to have that sense of being an international best-selling author. I know what that feels like. It's literally not even 24 hours old for me. The book I contributed to launched yesterday, and we have hit international best-selling, #1 international best-selling status in various different countries, including in Australia, I may add. We beat Jay Shetty to the #1 spot. How's that? Just putting it out there. Anyway, it's exciting, exciting. So you've got your book in hand. What are you going to do with it? Is that going to remain a very expensive calling card? Or are you going to do something with your book to add to it? Well, now you've got something on paper to back up what you're saying out loud. Where are you going with your book? What stages are you going to promote the book and also the book to back up what you're saying? So they kind of go together on this one. So where are you speaking? Where are you speaking about the book? Do you do that beforehand? Oh, yes. Get the idea that there's something exciting coming. Pull your audience in. Get them excited. They could be teasers along the way. Maybe just a couple of words. Maybe a sentence. Maybe your book chapter title. Something to entice your audience to come a little closer, to find out a bit more about what you're talking about. That's the bit beforehand. Then on launch day, there's all sorts of things around that. And that's where, if you come in on when you come in on the multi-author book that we're running, the M.A.D one, this is where one of our experts is really pumping up with you how you do your launch strategy. Very important. And then what about afterwards? How are you going to promote not just the Kindle version, but also then the physical version? What do you need to invite people to pay for the full book? You know, the physical one, the one that you could actually hold on to. The one that you as an author can sign. Autographed copies. How's that for thinking? What are you going to do to bring people into that experience? What's your promotion going to include? Is it going to include a landing page? If so, what's the layout of your landing page? How are you going to entice your ideal audience? I'm kind of assuming here that you have got your ideal audience worked out. Remember the 9 pillars of influential communication? People is pillar number 2. Once you've got your purpose organized, you need to know who you're talking to. So all your communication is aimed at your avatar, your number 1 person that you are talking directly to. So whether you have an email out, whether you have a newsletter, whether you have a social media post, you are writing, you're speaking to that one person. Have that clear in your mind, because that's going to make life a lot simpler for you. Okay. What about podcasts? Oh, now that's a good way of advertising, of promoting what you're doing, not simply with the book, and you're talking, you're speaking as well. So who do you need to get in front of? Again, think about your audience. Be clear about your audience's demographic. And then check out the podcasts that speak to that audience. How are you going to find that out? There are some podcast directories. Podmatch is one of them. There are a couple of others, so message me if you're interested and I could put you in touch with them. Those are directories. As I said, you need to have your ideal audience clear in your mind first, because then you can ascertain which ones are going to be useful to you, return on invested time, and which ones, if somebody asked you to speak on theirs, it would be very nice to have a good conversation. However, is it strategically right for your audience? Because if it's not, your time is actually quite precious. Speak to the people that need to hear your message. Remember, you are the Uber driver and you are taking your very important passenger, like your message, to stages it needs to be heard. So what else can we do? We've talked about a book. What about summits? Summits are very often virtual. And again, there are speaker directories that you can get your bio on for free, speaker directory listings. And then event managers know about these directories. They've got a virtual summit coming up and they can go, oh, hello, that's exactly who I need on my summit. Again, you have to be clear about your target audience. Who is your target audience? What is your title for your signature talk? And what do you talk about? Give a bit of information and you put your bio on there as well. Summits. That takes a different skill set than being on a podcast. Again, going back to the podcast for a minute. What is the podcast format? Know that ahead of getting on with the podcast host. Is it free-flowing conversation? Or are you going to turn up with these are a list of the questions I'd like you to ask, which will then invite me to get my message across. Again, start with the end in mind. Who is your target audience? What do they want to hear? Is it free flow? In which case you, as a guest, are going to veer the conversation around to what you want to say, what you want to share. Or you come prepared and you give the host ahead of time those particular questions that you would like asked. Some hosts work one way, some hosts work the other way. Work with your host. Get to know them first. Get to know their style. Listen to what they've already put out. What is their style in their other podcasts? So that's you doing your homework before you apply. Okay, back to your plan. Podcasts. Where do I need to look for? Who do I need to be in touch with? Who's my target audience? What style? Is it free flow? Is it set questions? These are the things to bear in mind planning your podcast route for the year. How many podcasts do you want to get on? How many a month? Bear in mind there's a lag time very often between the recording and publication. So if you've got a launch of a program, think about that in terms of the lag time. You want to do as much promotion that will come out just ahead of or just after your launch. Think about the timing on that one. Again, it's planning. Now, I'm talking just as much to me as I am to you at this point, because I find it difficult to sit down and plan. Vulnerability moment. So there you go. Podcasts, summits. That's where we were going to, wasn't it? Summits. Now, these speaker directories I'm talking about, podcast hosts can get on these as well and check out who's available. Summits are really useful. This is a different skill set. You're looking at presenting virtually, like I'm doing now. And there are definite ways of doing it. How do you present to camera? Are you looking directly at the camera, in which case you're giving eye contact? How do you make sure that you can see your audience, be aware of your audience? There are a number of different things around that. Speaking to summit level. We have 3 summits coming up this year. One on health, one on wealth, and one on relationships. Ahead of that, we have a coaching program to get the speakers ready, to get you ready to be a summit speaker. So even if you've not done any virtual stuff before, or maybe you've dabbled a bit and you're thinking, I could do with a bit of work on this. Let's get together. Come and join us for the preparation and the summit afterwards. 3 opportunities this year. Stage expansion. After you've done a number of virtual things, or even at the same time as doing virtual things, you also will require to hone your in-person skills. Because yes, the world is beginning to open up again, and we get the opportunity of standing on physical stages. It's a different ball game to Zoomland. You can use your gestures at the normal height that you would do if you were face-to-face with somebody. You don't need to have them up here. You can be a little bit more expressive. You can see right now, you can't see what I'm doing with my fingers. When you're there in person, you can afford to be really expansive in your gestures. There's staging to consider. It's not simply the lean in, lean back, and a few other things that we do on Zoomland. Either way, virtual or in person, you've got things like the left-right orientation. Lots of different things to consider about the in-person training as well. How do we go from virtual alongside and towards a big stage? We're running a speakers retreat this year. It will be a hybrid. Maybe simply virtual. However, there will be specific work to do, physical work to do in person. We have a 3-day head down, bum up. Let's craft your message, your signature talk, so that you can deliver it in person or on virtual stages. We look at how you deliver it and how you promote it. Because if you're going to be on a big stage, you want the world to know about it. You want people there to hear, not necessarily you, but your very important message. Remember, you're the Uber driver. We're finishing the year here in Perth with a conference, an in-person conference with hybrid facilities. So that if you happen to be on the other side of the world, you can log in, you can link in, you can even present virtually. Ideally, we'd have you here in the room, but that's what we've got planned for this year. Each one of those activities requires a plan in and of itself. How many stages do you want to be on this year? How many podcasts a month? How many summits in the year? How do you get hold of them? How do you get your name known? What are the networks that you're going to be linking into? What are the networks you're already linked in with? And that's not necessarily online, physical ones in your environment as well, in your locale. The summits, of course, are likely to be virtual, but you may have a summit in your locality as well. All of these things I'd like you to consider in your plan. So making a plan for making a difference in 2023. This may not be the most sexy thing you want to do. However, it gives you the banks of the river that you can then flow your message through to reach the maximum number of people to make a difference. If you'd like more information on what I've discussed today, particularly the events that we've got coming up, I might even share a little bit of my plan if you ask very nicely. Like I said, I know how much of a challenge this is. Yesterday, we launched a multi-author book. I was part of a group of women who launched a multi-author book with a different publisher to the one that we are using for the multi-author book, Making a Difference. Different strategies, different plans, but nonetheless, we've got a couple of weeks before the physical copies are launched. There's a strategy to be thought of. There's a plan to be had. How am I going to make the most of the time in between to whet the appetite, entice the people to come in, buy the physical copy? What are they going to get specially for doing that over and above having the Kindle version? All these things to consider and plan. What you're going to do, what's your timeline? Who's involved? Is it just down to you? Is it just down to you? Is it simply down to you? Or do you have other people involved? Do you have a team that you can delegate to? For example, maybe you've got social media covered by somebody else. Maybe you've got a landing page covered by somebody else. What information do you need to give them in order for them to do their job? Planning, making a plan to make a difference in 2023. Let's talk, because this year is a year for making a difference. Bye from me.